Hello, my name is Tiffany Callahan, and I am a postdoctoral research fellow at Columbia University in the Department of Biomedical Informatics. Today I will be presenting on a project that was conducted as part of my dissertation, which examined the utility of aligning a framework for standardizing data quality checks, originally designed for electronic health record data, to ontologies like those in the Open Biomedical Ontology Foundry. Ontologies, like the snapshot of the gene ontology shown on the right, play an important role in standardizing and integrating knowledge and are subject to data quality issues. Quality assessment is vital to the development and maintenance of ontologies. Typically, quality assessment is performed with the goal of identifying logical or semantic errors, that is, things like inconsistencies, incompleteness, and redundancy, as well as lexical and syntactic errors, and structural and hierarchical errors that are evaluated at the schema and data level. A wide range of metrics to assess data quality have been defined in the literature, with most studies using different combinations of metrics. Recent reviews have identified readability, consistency, adherence to syntactic rules, interpretability, comprehensiveness, relevance, accuracy, and clarity as frequently used metrics. And while many existing ontology quality tools exist, they can be difficult to use and are often inconsistently maintained and may not even be publicly available. And most existing tools were developed and designed to evaluate only a single ontology. But ontologies are designed to represent knowledge in specific domains. The ability to align or merge knowledge from multiple ontologies is important and necessary for the advancement of deep computational phenotyping. And there are many challenges that exist to merging or combining multiple ontologies, and solutions to address these challenges aren't readily available, but are currently under development. Within the clinical domain, many tools have been developed in order to help improve the quality of data sources like electronic health record data. As a result, many clinical data quality assessment strategies now exist, but there was very little consensus on what mattered, and most disagree on the best way to assess these errors. The Harmonized Data Quality Framework, or HDQF, was developed by Michael Kahn in order to solve this problem. This figure provides a high-level overview of that framework, and the framework itself describes a set of categories that operate within two data quality assessment evaluation contexts. On one end, we have the confirmation of expectations about aspects of data that are based on comparisons to local knowledge or pre-specified metadata. We call these verification. On the other side, we have comparisons to external benchmarks or gold standards, and we call this validation. Within these contexts, the framework further defines three dimensions, which are themselves made up of additional categories. The first dimension is conformance, which assesses whether or not data values adhere to pre-specified internal or external formatting constraints, which is value, agree with structural constraints like primary and foreign key relationships, which is relational, and are accurate when computationally derived from existing variables, which are computational. Completeness assesses whether data values are present at a single point in time or multiple points in time, which covers atemporal and temporal elements respectively. And finally, plausibility aims to assess whether data values are believable and is assessed through the agreement of logically constrained measures or distributions and independent measurements of the same fact, atemporal, temporal properties or sequences and state transitions of measures, and through the presence of duplicated measurements, variable values, or records, which covers uniqueness. As mentioned on the prior slide, the HDQF is widely used to categorize electronic health record data quality checks, and it may provide an important avenue for expanding existing ontology quality assessment strategies. Thus, the goal of this work was twofold. First, we aim to develop and evaluate ontology checks to assess fitness of use of both individual and merged ontologies. And second, we aim to then categorize these ontology checks using the HDQF. For ontology check development, checks were reviewed by a member of the Open Biomedical Ontology Foundry Working Group and a semantic web developer with over 10 years of experience. These checks were applied to the 11 open biomedical ontologies, which are shown on this slide. For ontology check characterization, the developed ontology checks were aligned to the HDQF. The checks were aligned under two contexts, for a single ontology or a set of merged ontologies. The HDQF developers then independently mapped the ontology checks, and any check not able to be clearly mapped was discussed until the final mapping consensus was reached. This slide presents a table of the data quality checks that were developed as a result of this work. As you can see here, we developed a total of 7 checks, which is doubled into 14 when applied to the individual and merged ontology sets independently. As shown in this table, the checks included the assessment of deprecated and obsolete entities, verification of value errors like typing, examination of semantic heterogeneity, like identification of entities that are the same object, but which have different identifiers, alignment of identifiers, and recognition of identifier errors, and finally, the identification of punning errors, which occur when an object like a class is initially declared as a class and then redeclared as something else, like say an object property. This figure provides a snapshot of a section of the data quality report that is generated after the ontology data quality checks are applied. As shown in this figure, the report is organized by ontology and provides links to where the original and cleaned data are stored, as well as pre- and post-cleaning ontology statistics. With respect to ontology check development, 2 iterations of revisions were required to finalize the check definitions. 3 iterations were required to finalize the algorithm which performs the checks. And 4 iterations of revisions were required to create the ontology quality report. All checks except deprecated and obsolete entities were mapped to an HDQF category, which led to the development of a new except the deprecated and obsolete entities were mapped to an HDQF category, which led to the development of a new data dependency category. And this was designed with the help of a professional software developer. At the individual ontology level, 42.8% of the ontology checks were aligned to the value conformance category within the HDQF. 28.6% were aligned to plausibility uniqueness, and the remaining 28.6% were mapped to the new data dependency category. At the merged level, all of the ontology checks map to the relational conformance level. With respect to ontology check characterization, the cell line ontology had the most errors, and the vaccine ontology was found to have the fewest. The amount of deprecated entities ranged widely across ontologies, with KEBI, the sequence ontology, and the gene ontology containing the most. Punning errors were identified in both the cell line ontology and when working with the full merge set of ontologies. And semantic heterogeneity errors were only identified when working with the merge set of ontologies. In conclusion, a total of 14 ontology data quality checks were created and mapped to the HDQF. We were able to extend the HDQF by adding a new data dependency concept. And while not all HDQF concepts were represented by the new ontology checks, this provides opportunities for us to guide future ontology check development if it makes sense with aligning to those currently unmapped categories. These results provide initial support for the HDQF as a translational tool for standardizing data quality checks. But there are several important limitations we'd like to point out. Ontology checks were tested on a small sample of ontologies. The ontology quality pipeline does not include use of existing tools like Robot, but it should, and it is something we are actively doing to improve the pipeline. Ontology developers did not actively participate in the HDQF alignment process, but they should, as this is important for us to recognize not only what's important, but whether or not the checks, and including the categories that don't currently have an aligned check, are worth aligning to the ontologies. I'd like to wrap up by saying this work would not have been possible without the individuals shown on this screen. And to learn more, please see the linked resources provided in this slide, and feel free to reach out through email if you have any questions. Thank you so much.